Gerald Lucas here with another installment of Ask Gerald, where you get your real estate questions answered. Today's question comes from Edward. Edward writes from Hillside, New Jersey. And Edward writes, Gerald, what's the best corporate entity to use for real estate transactions? Well, Edward, the most appropriate corporate entity to use for real estate transactions will depend on what kind of real estate transaction or transactions you want to do. So you got to think about things like, what your capital requirements are, what your time horizon is in terms of, how long the transaction or the deal or deals that you're going to be using are going to, take place for. You got to think about whether you plan on doing real estate transactions yourself or with other partners, as well as if you are going to use partners, how many you're going to use. So you got to consider all these things to come up with the best entity to use for a specific real estate transaction that you're trying to do. But I'll talk about two entities that are often used in real estate transactions, which are the S Corp or S Corporation and the LLC. And between those two, I think that the S Corporation is my least favorite entity to use for a number of reasons. One of which is that S corporations tend to be more difficult and time-consuming and expensive to set up and to maintain. They also tend to be more restrictive than an LLC. Also with S corporations, you can only have one class of ownership or one class of shareholders. So for example, if you have an S Corp, you can't have a shareholder that's an IRA, a corporation, or a partnership. And again, these restrictions don't exist for LLCs. In addition, for tax purposes, you have to have a positive capital balance to carry a loss forward with an S corporation, which you don't as an LLC. And if you shut down an S corporation, you can no longer use any unused losses going forward. And again, like I said, LLCs they're less restrictive, they're less expensive to set up and to maintain. But again, to go back to your question was, what's the best entity? It really depends on what you're trying to do. And there are other entities too that you can use, like a trust, for example, in a real estate transaction. But the moral of the story is that you really need to get into the detail of the specific transaction or transactions you want to do in order to come up with the ideal or appropriate corporate entity to use. So thanks for your question, Edward. For more real estate information and tips, visit my blog at geraldlucas.com. I'm Gerald Lucas, and I'll see you again soon.